David Asman is a Fox Business anchor and joins me here. This marks the weakest growth since April 2021, but you say it's still good. I mean,
no, it's a fairly good number, and I mean, it's. You know, the market kind of likes it. You can look, the Dow, I think, is up about 300 points right now because it's not so strong that you know they're gonna worry about more rate increases and everything, but it's strong enough. So in that sense, it's good. But you look into the devil's in the details, and one of the devils is wage growth. Wage growth was less than expected. It's still up 5.2% a year. Sounds great. The president can say, "Oh, wages are way up."
Right.
Well, inflation is up 8.5%. So you're still paying. The average American is paying about $5,000 a year more for the basics, for food, for gas. And we got winter coming. You know, natural gas has been popping up about 80% increase.
Oh, it's been brutal.
Now, it hasn't really kicked in yet because we're not in the winter months.
Yeah.
But once we get there, people are going to be shocked, and they're going to be paying a lot more than on top of that $5,000 extra that they're paying a year. Again, wage increases are nice. There's another problem, which is productivity. Yesterday, we got productivity numbers. That means how much an individual is able to produce, whether it's a good or a service. That's down 4% in the first half of the year.
Yeah.
What that means is that inflation, there's more of an impetus for inflation because the fewer goods you have, the more you have to pay for them.
Right.
And so that a lot of that has to do with the pandemic. People still have not gone back to the offices. That's why owners of businesses are so anxious to get employers to come back to the offices, and they're reluctant to do so, still because of worries about the pandemic, but also because of crime.
Right.
Because a lot of these cities where so the fact is you got low productivity, impetus for inflation.
Right.
You have wage growth down a little bit more than was expected, and it's way underwater concerning inflation. So inflation is still the number one problem.
Don't you need, you know, slowing the economy, though, isn't that needed in order to bring down inflation, or no?
No, it's not, because as I said, if
you
have more services and goods created because of economic growth, inflation will come down.
Right.
Inflation is too much money chasing too few goods. The Fed is dealing with a too much money thing. Too late, but it's dealing with it. But in terms of too few goods, we still have a problem because productivity is down, and we have an administration that's about to increase taxes.
Right.
They've already increased regulations, and that's going to increase inflation too. So if you get the economy growing more by lowering taxes and lowering regulations, you will have less inflation. But the administration's going in exactly the opposite direction, unfortunately.
Well, and predictably so. I mean, wow, they're going in the opposite direction.
We knew they were going to raise taxes, and they haven't done it yet. But the regulations are kind of tax. I mean, it's obviously a tax on the lower and middle class in terms of inflation, but it's also a tax on businesses that have to pay more for the regulation. Imagine what's going to happen with all those new IRS agents.
Oh, God, I cannot imagine. Critics, by the way, as you know, have been tearing into the so-called Inflation Reduction Act. The president made law last month. Many analysis prediction it will have little to no actual effect on inflation. But then there's this one Democrat who said the quiet part out loud, letting it slip to an environmental group. What the measure is really about? Not inflation.
The Inflation Reduction Act, that might be the name, but it's a huge environmental bill that includes a lot of things, such as the tax credits necessary to make these kind of developments.
I can't tell you how many times this has happened to me. I'm like, oh, did I just say that out loud?
Yeah, right. Well, but the point is everybody knows it's not going to reduce inflation, particularly after the president goes ahead and unilaterally, unconstitutionally, a lot of people say, spent at least $500 billion on the student loan forgiveness, which is supposed to go, something like that's supposed to go through Congress. He didn't, so he may not be able to get it done. It may be knocked down by the courts, but that's going to wipe out any possibility of saving money on the deficit or decreasing inflation. So it's ridiculous. Plus, you just look at some of the contradictions with these green policies already going on in California. They tell you that you're not going to be able to buy a gas car.
Yes, I know.
And then at the same time, they're telling you can't charge your electric car during the holiday weekend. I just saw Trace Gallagher. He's flying back to California today. I said, I hope you're not driving an electric car because you're not going anywhere this weekend. You won't be able to charge it.
Yeah, they're banning the charging between the hours of 4 and 9 p.m. These are the same Democrats that push for electric cars because they wanted to lower emissions and air pollution, but then also want to ban gas-powered vehicles by 2035.
It's not cheaper because what we've seen in the UK, where they really went further than we've gone in this direction, it's now more expensive to charge your EV than it is to put gas in your petrol car.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just not making any sense economically or in terms of green because they're burning more coal.
That shady stock deal by Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband, we got to talk about that because it's looking even shadier. Dave loves this story. So Paul Pelosi dumped 25,000 shares of NVIDIA stock in July amid this backlash on the timing of his purchase, ironically, which came just before President Biden signed the CHIPS Act. But now it turns out Pelosi dodged a 20% loss by selling those shares before U.S. restrictions on NVIDIA went into effect just a month later. This is no coincidence.
Well, he makes money when it's going up and when it's coming down with this information. I mean, just maybe coincidentally that he got information about what was about to happen in Congress. I mean, you know, there aren't that many coincidences that happen when you're investing. I mean, investing comes from information, from due diligence, getting information, not from secret information, background information that you get from your wife before Congress goes ahead and does something. That's why there was something called a Stock Act that was supposed to prevent Congress people from trading on the basis of the inside information they have. They signed that act with great fanfare a couple of years ago, and it's done nothing at all. I mean, it's ridiculous that they even have that because obviously the Pelosis aren't following it too carefully.
No. All right. David Asman, it's always great to see you.
And
have a great Labor Day weekend.
Thank you. Same
to you.
Hope you have some
fun
3 days.
plans.
I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Subscribe to the Fox News YouTube channel to catch our nightly opens, stories that are changing the world and changing your life. From Tucker Carlson tonight.